extent should municipalities be given more power in terms of, let's obviously we have constitutional issues and so on, but to what extent the kinds of services and the kinds of decisions that have to be made locally, to what extent do you think that we really ideally could move towards giving our municipalities a little bit more scope to act in these areas?
Can I start with that one? You would expect my reaction would be we need much more, and it is partially true, except that you have to really have accountability at the council level. I'm saying that because almost 2/3 of our council was not elected this time, and because it was an issue of accountability and transparency. So I think that we have to be careful. I think that there are some ways of doing business in Ontario that should apply to the private sector as well as the municipal sector. I'm thinking about, for example, the Condominium Corporations Act that requires condominium corporations to maintain asset management plans and to have reserves for doing the repairs. We don't have the same runs on municipalities. And I think that is something that should be applied. Now, if you have these kind of tools or mechanisms for municipalities to act in an accountable manner, then I think that you have to provide them as well with the tools that they can go after the types of revenues that they need to be able to maintain their services. If you don't do that, then there's always an imbalance. And the way that the system is today is that the balance is there and municipalities are acting in a way, not all of them, but there are many of them, that are basically waiting for programs and grants and subsidies from government. And doing things today thinking that maybe 12 years from now, there'll be another program that comes and fixes what we haven't done. And in a number of cases, and across Ontario, across Canada, we have seen municipalities benefiting for poor management of their assets because there were new programs and they needed to go out of the door and so on. So, have to be careful about handing out too much power without the accountability.
I'm just going to offer a brief comment. A lot of municipalities, regional municipalities, and I'm not familiar with Ottawa in particular, but have an integrated approach to their master plan. They do a lot of master plans, which is the future planning. From that perspective, there's a great deal of power in looking at what their community needs are, what they've got based on infrastructure, and how they plan for the future. I think with power, if you work with power more at the municipal level, there need to be different funding mechanisms, and there aren't funding mechanisms other than the usual suspects, if you will. So there really is an important corroboree around that would need to be looked at. It looks like our microphone has not functioning, but that's I'm pretty sure that's one mic in the microphone. You turned me off, you did.
Sorry. Probably, I may sound a little facetious, probably the only city in the world that is satisfied with its powers is Singapore, because it's a city-state. When I was at EDC, one of the areas that I looked at was municipal risk internationally, and cities throughout the world suffer from the same issues that the Canadian city suffer from. And that's that they're a creature of a higher level of government. So regardless of whether a city might have additional taxation powers or additional spending powers in certain areas of another country, they are all still limited by what the upper level of government will let them do. So cities nowhere are independent. I'm not saying the model we have in Canada is perfect and can't be fixed. Sometimes it's a matter of be careful what you wish for. Several American cities have the power to put on sales taxes and income taxes, and they're suffering greatly right now because of the recession in the United States. The one thing you can say about the Canadian model, funding model, is it is steady. It's very easy to predict your revenues from year to year. Some of the other models, it's not so easy. So it may not be ideal, but I'm not sure if there is an ideal model out there.
I think I should in terms of the city model. First of all, I do want to say that, and I reiterate what I said earlier about the requirement for water plans and which has to look at the long term in terms of the assets and making sure you have enough money to maintain them. So there is a movement that's happening there, and certainly the City of Ottawa is planning to do that with a number of our other assets as well. The asset reporting requirements is a good step. I think in terms of are we investing enough, the answer is for the rehabilitation and renewal, the answer is clearly in some areas no, and it tends to be on the transportation side of the equation. So the question is how do you fix that? And with limited tools to raise funds for that, maybe we do have to look at that. And then my suggestion would be, okay, if there is any assessment of tools, then, do you take a step back and look at, how the tools then can drive a more sustainable approach, so that you get into more active transportation. And when we look at some of our DC charges, DCs, and how you have to calculate it on a 10-year historical spending, which puts transit behind in terms of our ability to raise DC money to pay for a new and significant transit investment. Well, that's a systemic problem that's not going to get us to the next level of having a much more sustainable city overall. Similarly, when we want to invest in things like pedestrian and cycling improvements that will really contribute to the quality of life of the city, that's almost $100 dollars, and it's a real struggle. So if there's a review of saying, there's not enough money on that, particularly on the transportation side, but if we ever look at the tools, we have to look at how we want to use those tools to create different outcomes.
Okay, thanks very much.